Welcome to the channel. Today we've got a 97 F150 here with a no crank, no start. So right here we've got our voltmeter, just a regular old DVOM. I've got one lead hooked to the battery positive and one to battery negative right here. And we're reading 12.4 volts. Not sure if you can see that or not, but anyhow, that's okay. 12.4, 12.6 would be better, but that's good. I've got Ryan right inside the cab there. Let's see if we can see his face. See if he's sitting there. Is he sleeping? Oh, all right. He gave us a thumbs up. He's doing all right. All right, Ryan, you ready to help us out here? Yeah. We're going to, I'm going to have you, now, it won't start. We know that, but I'm going to have you crank and just hold it in the crank position, okay? And we're going to watch the volts here. Watch this drop. Go ahead. Let's see. You holding? Yeah, hold it in. There you go. Okay, let off. Turn it off. So it went down about a little more than half a volt, so that's not a big deal. I'm not concerned about the battery being an issue. I do hear back here is the, let me get a light for you guys. Right back here is our solenoid. These Ford trucks have a remote solenoid. It is clicking, and we could do a battery drop test on that. Let's take that cover off, and I'll do a voltage drop test now from this terminal to this terminal. So let's do that. And then what we'll do is the next step, we'll have to go down below the truck and hook up to the starter. We'll do a voltage drop there. So let me zoom you guys in. Maybe you can see a little better what I'm doing here. There we go. Now we're cooking with something. Frisco, I guess, right here. So I've got the leads jumped across there. We're showing on the meter 12.39. Go ahead and crank, and hold it. Hold it in the crank position. Okay, let off. Okay, so basically our voltage flow dropped down to 0, and we should be, go ahead and do that one more time. I'm going to read it. Okay, good. So 0.04 volts, which is almost nothing, so that's good. So let me point some goodies out to you here. So this wire here, this is our control wire. That's the S terminal, and that just pulls off. Now when you update these, I think they give a different connector now. But anyway, so that's that one here. This is our solenoid. Here's your, this post here is our B post. So this is hot. This is 12 volts all the time. So if you jump from here to negative to the ground here, you should have continuity. This is the, the other terminal jumps. That B power, sorry, I'm trying to hold my flashlight and the camera. Jumps power over here when the solenoid is told to kick on from the ignition switch being turned on. Sends power through this terminal to the actual starter motor. And then over here is our ground. Let me try to get around this line for you so you can see what I'm talking about. So right here is a ground. Okay, so our voltmeter lead is hooked to battery positive. Here's our meter. I don't have leads that are long enough to bring them to the top, but right now the other lead is hooked to the B terminal on the starter, which I showed you, and we're showing 0 volts. Go ahead, Ryan, and crank that and hold it in the crank position. Good. Let off. Okay, good. So we had 0 volts. So now we have the voltmeter hooked to battery negative, and I also have the other side of the voltmeter lead directly to the housing of the starter. So we want to check to see if we have a good ground. Go ahead and right now we're at 0 volts, which is good. We don't want to see any voltage there. Go ahead and hold it in the crank position. Okay, we got 0.05 volts let off. 0.04. So that is a good ground. We don't want to see anything more than like 0.2 volts, 0.2 or less. So that is a good ground. So now the voltmeter is hooked from battery positive down to the trigger wire, which is at S terminal. And I'm going to have Ryan turn the ignition and hold it now. We'll see what the voltage drops to. Go ahead. It's at, right now it's at 12.39 holding, and it went down to about let off. Went down to about 0.2, which is what is that? 0.2 of a volt. So that's not too bad. I mean, 0 would be better, but 0.2 is okay. So we're okay there. Let's get to the next step. So I've got my test light here hooked to ground on the solenoid housing, and I'm just going to put this in a control wire here, and then Ryan, go ahead and just crank, and our test light should light up. Go ahead, do it a couple times. Go ahead, let off, don't hold it. Do it a few times. Okay, good, let off. Okay, so that tells you that your control circuit is good from your ignition switch. So that is definitely not the issue there. The other test you can do is the ground wire. You know, you still have your test light hooked to ground, not ground wire. You can come over here and touch this 12 volt B terminal here, and you should light up. Okay, because this should be hot all the time. Of course, that's not going to be hot unless your solenoid engages. The other terminal right there, sorry, my camera was off. So this should be hot all the time. We're hooked to our casing here is ground. You could test if you want to go the other way. You could hook this part of the test light to the B terminal and then touch ground and see if it lights up. So with our diagnosis, it's definitely starter replacement time. Right here, make sure when you take off your battery terminal, you clean that up real good with some sandpaper. This negative terminal, same thing right there. Make sure you get that all nice and clean. We've got to remove this nut. Then there's a bolt here behind there, and then there's two at the top. I'll have to show you when it's out because it's hard to film. I might be able to sneak it in, but I'll show you how to take these bolts out. It's really simple. I'm just going to undo this nut now, remove this terminal, remove this nut, take that terminal off. We already have unplugged our S terminal, so the wiring will be free, and then we'll just take out the 3 bolts. I'm going to start, before I replace that starter or remove it, definitely remove your terminal here, your negative terminal. If you want to take the positive off, go ahead if that makes you feel good. I don't think it's necessary, but for giggles, we'll do it. That way I can just clean the terminals anyway while I'm up here. While I have them off, it'll remind me. These don't seem too bad, not too much corrosion. So if you want to make life easier for yourself, removing those 3 bolts out of the starter. Now that one you can get from underneath that has the nut combo with the negative cable. But jack up the truck on the right front, put a safety stand right there, and I removed the wheel and tire so you can get better access. This is like 97 to 03. I know they're pretty much all the same. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. I've got a light here behind this exhaust manifold. Back there is our starter, so it's way up in there. There's one bolt right there, that old crusty, and then the right at the top, right up there, and then you got this other one down here. So there's our bolts, and I'm going to show you what I use to get to those to make this easy, because if you try to do it from up there with a socket, though, by the way, those are 13mm bolts. It's a little challenging because you don't have much swing room for your ratchet. So what I'll do is I take a big long butt extension like this, and you know, this you could use a 24 or put a couple of them together like that, and I use a 13 swivel metric right there, 6-point, and I'll fish this up in here like this. Of course, probably won't be able to see a thing I'm doing. And you know, make sure your battery's disconnected and all that, and I'll fish this right down in there, come out here on this end with my ratchet and zip these 2 out real quick. You know what that looks like, and then the starter's ready to pull once you get all 3 of them out. So to show you the homeschool method, I put a couple of them together. You don't have to have those long fancy extensions. So I got that one right on there now, and zipping that bad boy out. You probably can't see it, but trust me, he's coming out. They weren't too tight, or that one isn't anyway. I'm going to move to the next one. Just be cautious when you get all 3 out. The starter's going to drop. You want to be there to hold it, and if there are any shims, you want to make sure you put the shims back, so for the proper spacing. So when that what am I having a brain freeze right now? When the Bendix, the little gear in the starter, the Bendix shoots out, it connects to the flywheel, or not the flywheel if it's a standard transmission, a ring gear if you got an automatic transmission, and they bind properly so the gears mesh. That's what that shim's for. So here we are on the bench, got the old guy out. He's what is he, about 22 years old. So this is an original Motorcraft right here, and yeah, 140,000 miles. This thing has been used thousands of times. That truck's been started at different job sites. Here's the replacement. I'm going with this brand. This is a new one, not a rebuilt. Lifetime warranty. Not too bad to get out if you have to, so I don't know. Hopefully you won't have to use the warranty. Now, the difference is that trigger wire has this little plug-on type connector, and I guess there was some kind of TSB out on how that would corrode and what have you. This one isn't corroded. We don't have a choice, we just have a standard terminal. So they give you this wire here, this little pigtail, and what you need to do is cut off the spade on underneath the truck, off the harness there. Put this in here, which I don't really like, and just crimp it down. And then they give you this heat shrink wrapping already on here. Let me zoom it in a little bit. So then you're supposed to take your heat gun and, you know, heat shrink that down. So it is what it is. I guess we could cut this off and solder it in, but you want to be able to remove it. It's still going to be a challenge either way. I guess you can just take the nut off. Yeah, you would just take the nut off, and then you got a spade terminal there. So I guess we're good to go. Anyhow, that's that. Match everything out, compare it, make sure, you know, it looks pretty close to what you're taking out, you're going to put back in. I had a heck of a time with this lower bolt combination nut that holds that negative terminal on. So the starter goes in like this, and you saw, oops, like this, and you guys saw, let me back out here. You guys saw, you know, these two with the extension taking it out from the top. Well, this guy down here, this sits in here. Well, this nut was a murderer to get off. I don't know, it doesn't really look stripped, but it was so tight. There was some corrosion on here. So I'm gonna chase these threads, and I mean, that took me longer to take out this one nut than it will be to film and edit and everything else with this video. Anyhow, that was my problem, hopefully not yours. Let me get everything cleaned up. I'm going to clean up the mounting surface where this actually mounts. You can see there's corrosion here. So where it mounts to the engine block over there, I'm going to clean that all up. I'll clean up those terminal ends and on our battery cables and the negative cable, and I'll get this spliced in, this pigtail here, and bolt it on up, and hopefully when we turn the key we have ignition. I just wanted to add, with the new starter, we did get these test results. Now, how many photocopies of this they have, I don't know. I mean, I would hope it was the actual starter that we put in, but it does some testing here. It's got a whole bunch of different levels of testing where it passed, supposedly, and it's saying that the amperage on here, or they call it kilowatts, is actually exceeds the performance curve, meets or exceeds. So, and then they say right here that it was 530 amps was the motor current, and the maximum solenoid pull was 25 amps. So we know our old one's not doing that, that's for sure. There's our new starter from the top, and here's our new starter from the bottom. So you saw the new starters in. I tightened up the battery terminals, negative and positive, got that all done. Before I bolt the tire wheel on here, bring the jack down, Ryan's in the truck. We're gonna give it a test start. And what do you think? You think it's gonna start or what? You think the old man still has it?
Yeah.
All right, you fire it up. I appreciate your help. Let's see what happens here. Let it run. There you go. Well, we have contact. So what do you want, cash or water ice?
Cash.
Cash? All right, Cash is king. Well, I'm not sure about him, but I'd go for the water ice. It's pretty hot out here. Here's the starter I used. There's the part number. I'll leave it down below. It's made in Malaysia, hopefully with that lifetime warranty. In my lifetime anyway, I won't have to get under there and replace it again. But thanks for stopping in. I hope you enjoyed the video. I wanted to give you some, details as far as what you need to diagnose this correctly. You don't want to have to go replace a battery, the thing's not starting. You hear the clicking, the solenoid, oh, dead battery. It's not. It could be the wiring, could be the starter, could be a combination of things. So hopefully you got an idea now. Check out some of my other repair videos if you get a chance. Subscribe if you haven't. I appreciate it. and I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.